So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back from the break. I hope you all enjoyed the opening session of CERC as much as I did. As was already said earlier, it's brilliant to see so many of you here today, and the growth of this conference year on year is really testament to the growth of the UK-Kuwait Cybersecurity Partnership. By way of introduction, my name is Andrew. I work in the political section of the British Embassy here in Kuwait, and I'll be your MC for the next couple of hours until we get to lunch. As has been touched on by both our UK ambassador and our cyber ambassador, Her Excellencies Belinda Lewis and Juliet Wilcox, our cybersecurity partnership with Kuwait is a core part of the embassy's work here. And as a diplomat, I've noticed there are a few similarities between the fields of diplomacy and cyber, not least of all our mutual love of acronyms. So based on that, the focus of our upcoming set of presentations is set to be ICS SCADA systems, and we have a great selection of speakers lined up for you. To kick us off, it's now my pleasure to invite Professor Siraj Sheikh of the UK's very own Swansea University to present on ICS SCADA systems. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Morning, everyone, and to my Kuwaiti friends and fellows, Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure. So I have, of course, the pleasure of having an MC from the British Embassy, so I better behave on my talk. Not any day, every day that I get an MC from the embassy. So just as an introduction, I'm going to touch on a theme which is very relevant to economics and policy and regulation. And if I were to just give you a little context, I will touch on the work and the kind of legislative and economic landscape in the UK. But this is very relevant to a lot of the developing ecosystem outside of the UK as well. And now I understand that Kuwait particularly is establishing and has established an NCSC, and they're on that journey to enable the ecosystem to be more mature. So I think some of the insights that I'm currently looking at as part of some of the work that I'll share today would be hopefully relevant as well. But equally, feel free to follow up, but raise questions in terms of anything that is more kind of relevant to the local context. If I could just introduce my team. So as a habit, I have to acknowledge and give due credit to the group of people that I work with closely on a day-to-day basis. We are the Systems Security Group at Swansea University, which is based in part of the Computer Science Department, but works very closely with engineering, but also closely with economics and linguistics. And so as a group, we are focused on, our objective is what we call system security, which bluntly came about out of my work, which is sat at the interface of systems engineering and cybersecurity. And so just one thing, just to motivate the notion of system security here, is that security is not just confined to the IT or OT infrastructure. It's also about people, it's also about policy, it's also about legislation, regulation, how we interact with those systems and economics, and so much else in terms of communication and so on. So my notion of systems and the security of that entire system and the well-being of that system and ecosystem is something that we are trying to appeal. But as a group, we are a very diverse and a multidisciplinary group, bringing together colleagues from policy science, assurance science, but also embedded systems and computer science and so on. And we, of course, beyond just research, we work with industry. We are also, some of us are also certified risk assessors in the automotive industry. So we actually do risk assessments alongside the traditional business of research and so on. So I will today just share some of the work that I'm currently doing. And this is really coming out of a body called RITICS, which is a research institute based at Imperial College in London, funded jointly by NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK, and the research councils. And myself and a colleague in the audience there as well, both of us are current fellows, RITICS fellows. And so the focus of my fellowship is a study of understanding how economic principles essentially govern and understand and analyze the dynamics of security. And the idea here really is, if I were to move forward, if I were to stay here, the last couple of bullet points, and apologies for a lot of the words on the slides, but I'll try to summarize them. The idea here is that we want to understand how do we systematically use the understanding of economics to understand that security dynamics, as it were, but particularly in the context of critical national infrastructure. So the security economics field for the last 15 years or so has been a formally established field. And there's a lot of interesting work that goes on, once again, based on a lot of economic modeling, but also evidence-based kind of understanding of organizations and people's behavior and so on. But its application to CNI, the critical national infrastructure, which are organizations of a particular kind, which I'll introduce in a minute, is important. But also the objective here is to build a community, not just in the UK, but potentially even beyond. So I'll be welcoming interest, to then essentially have a regenerative kind of a direction where we understand the research kind of agenda, and then inform more research out of it and so on. So, in a sense, the objective of the field of economics of security is understanding how we align liabilities, to understand how we make cybersecurity more cost-effective and have a better value for money, but also how we use those economic levers to achieve better security objectives. So I was trying to look for a definition of critical national infrastructure a few months earlier, and there are definitions, in other places. But I came across a report that was presented to the Parliament by the British Prime Minister a few years ago. And I came across this piece of text, and it's worth spending a couple of minutes just to absorb this. Because over here, this notion of the infrastructure being critical, obviously is important, but also this understanding that a lot of the infrastructure is operated by private enterprises, and they are driven by commercial considerations. So a water treatment plant or an energy provider, yes, have to serve a critical function, but the point is that they will be run by profit-making commercial kind of bodies with that kind of governance. And so there is an inherent tension that emerges from time to time. And so it's that tension that we want to kind of understand. But also, I think that conflict is very clearly mentioned. But also, in this report, of course, they refer to telecommunications, but this is applicable to almost every sector now, because that public-private partnership model is something which is quite visible in CNI. And of course, the corporate financing of such organizations also lends itself to those commercial imperatives. So my work is attempting to scope this field from two perspectives. One is a macroeconomic perspective, where we want to see a regulatory understanding of the system and how we, once again, use those economic principles and levers to maximize return on investment and guide kind of macroeconomic policy, but also a microeconomic framework where we understand more the dynamics across the supply chain, the behaviors and the cultures of organizations, within those organizations, and to really, once again, use them to improve, various elements of security. So some of the emerging themes that I just want to share, and the talk today is just about those themes that are emerging, so more questions than any answers. So one of the interesting concepts, once again, which is a very recent concept in economics and also in policy science, is around what we call a social license. So CNI operators are providing a very important function very often, obviously, and a very publicly kind of visible function, I should say. which means that any loss of energy is something that we feel immediately, or any loss of critical service, and so on. So by investing in cybersecurity, they are essentially achieving and continuing and sustaining a social license to operate. This is an important principle. So to a lot of those governing bodies and boards in the CNI sector, this idea of a social license is something that we need to kind of persevere on, with the view that ultimately it's the public and their acceptance of the governance of the CNI operation that is important. So the link between cybersecurity as such and the public and the social acceptability is very important. So that social license is something worth a theme to investigate, and that's what we're looking at as well. The other theme is of moral hazards. So this is something that is not new, but increasingly relevant. So any part of the world bringing together a complex operation, there is a global supply chain that we have to depend on. Even in very advanced countries in Western Europe, North America, East Asia, and so on, there are suppliers that lay beyond the legal national jurisdiction, and so on. And so the complex nature of those supply chains and this kind of information asymmetry that exists in terms of the knowledge and the technical kind of depth across those supply chains means that the suppliers may not carry the same understanding or risk sharing kind of capacity. So the point here really is that that kind of behavior across the supply chain is something that is open to moral hazards, and that of course poses a risk to the CNI operation. And so once again, how do we overcome that as such? The other notion which is interesting and emerging is of what we call collective economics or collective purchasing power and so on. I'll put a link there, but just to kind of briefly summarize, one thing that we've seen recently are these geopolitical alliances, regional alliances, taking note of cybersecurity and of course, using that to their advantage, using the economics to their advantage. So recently, US, Australia, Japan, and India have come together and called the Quad. And the Quad is trying to use those large populations and that growing economic kind of power between them to maximize certain advantages in areas of semiconductors, to maximize certain advantage and sourcing of secure software and secure coding practices and so on. And they've explicitly mentioned the collective economics, the collective purchasing kind of power and so on, to make sure to that advantage. So how do we understand that? How do we make sure that nations, be it small or big, could come together, or even within kind of certain ecosystems and industries, various customers and clients and organizations could come together to leverage that kind of power. So that collective economics is not new as a principle, but of course for cybersecurity, that could be quite interesting, and we are seeing that as a very clear example in the case of code, for example. The other challenge, of course, is, and I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar to this, of course, is the research and development and innovation that a lot of us are involved in. Now, when we come to commercializing that technology, the new novel technology and so on, very often the imperative for that kind of investment and so on is to realize that commercial growth and return. And the notion of innovation rents and a healthy innovation rent, of course, is important to incentivize that investment, particularly the private sector investment, into then generating a good return and then, of course, adoption of technology and so on. So the notion of innovation rent essentially is about the heightened or the additional growth in return that we get compared to traditional technologies and so on. So how do we then make sure that the novel technologies can attract innovation, kind of higher innovation rents? And so for CNI, this is particularly important because a lot of them are built on legacy systems and so on, but then as they move on to new suppliers, they'll have to obviously, kind of understand this and enable higher innovation rents. These are 4 themes that have come about, which are driving a lot of my kind of fellowship work. And so hopefully, we'll see more insights as I go through. There's one other theme that I'll delve into a little bit more, and this is towards the end of my talk. So the one element that the British government has done in the last few years is understand the importance of foreign investment, but even local kind of investment into the technology sector. And with that investment, of course, comes the promise of better finance, more skills, more novel technologies, and an ecosystem. But it also comes with certain risks in terms of how this very complicated kind of web of global corporate finance takes away and takes the kind of the gist away from some of those organizations and the technology kind of capability and capacity. So a few years ago, the National Security and Investments Act was enacted, and this is essentially a legislation that is giving government very explicit power to intervene and screen investments into certain areas. So I'll share the areas in a minute, but in the legislation, there's very clear mention of the kind of assets that are mentioned here, including kind of software assets and intellectual assets and so on. Beyond just that, but also physical assets, beyond just physical assets, of course, as well. But this is relevant to 17 explicitly mentioned areas of economy, which we can see, including from defense and energy and military, which is what you would expect, but also communications, hardware, robotics, transport, and a number of those digital sectors, which are, once again, the subject of a lot of cybersecurity attention as well. And what the Act does, it allows the government to actually intervene and block certain investments if it thinks that it is not in the interest of the UK in terms of UK's national security or in the interest of certain kind of use of information or access to information and so on. Now, this is existing in parallel to the competition's kind of authority that looks at, in the UK, mergers and acquisitions and so on. And they look at that purely from a kind of, avoiding monopolies and certain economic kind of challenges, but this is particularly looking at kind of security. So this is an interesting area, and what is emerging from this, which seems to be a national security imperative, what is emerging from this is a very strong link between cybersecurity and the corporate financing of this sector. So here is a review of, so the Act is very new, the last few years only, or 2.5, 3 years. And this is a review of all the interventions that the Secretary of State did under this Act in 2022. And what we find is there were 14 interventions, and there were a number of those sectors that were picked up for further intervention. And there were actually more cases that were kind of, notified, of course, many more, but a lot of them were just cleared through. Of the 14 that were picked up, there are a few that are actually blocked, which means that the Secretary of State basically took that investment as a threat to national security or in the kind of greater conflict of kind of economic security and so on, but particularly national security. And then there were a few that were cleared with certain conditions. So I've been looking at those conditions, and this is very interesting as to what is emerging. And so Apologies for this very heavy text slide, but let me summarize the key elements. So in certain cases, the NSIA is allowing investment to carry on, but it is insisting that it is subject to assurances that controls are in place to protect information from unauthorized access. So this is very interesting now, if you just put yourself in the foot of the organization being invested in. If any of you is involved in a new company or a startup or even a mature organization and you're receiving investment, that's a very important step for your corporate life and growth and so on. But if the NSIA is basically enforcing a condition that you have to operate good cybersecurity controls and make sure that access to that particular types of information is controlled, as a condition to that finance, it means that we need to take cybersecurity very seriously and to make sure that we have good governance principles and so on for that investment to come through. So there are at least 3 cases where we very clearly see this. This is from the subset for 2022, where this link is being made. So I think this is very important. Once again, I just want to re-emphasize this. It is the investment in cybersecurity that then ensures good corporate finance. And now it's become pretty much regulated and legislated in the UK. And this is something that is not new. In the US, there are similar acts that screen investment and so on. But what that means for us, for a lot of the innovators and researchers and so on, and people working in industry, is that we need to sit up and take notice and understand that security is not just a technology problem anymore. It is a problem of governance, it's a problem of corporate finance, it's a problem of economics, more so. And that link is something that we cannot artificially detangle. So this is something that is going to keep me busy, and I hope to share more insights. Today was just an opportunity to share some of the themes. One thing just to mention, I also see headlines that there are lots of regional developments towards rail. So one of the events that I'm organizing as part of my fellowship work is to look at the rail sector in the UK much more closely. And the rail sector is an example of a CNI sector, and we want to understand and analyze those insights in the rail sector more so. This is an event which is going to take place in January in the UK. Of course, my colleagues in the UK are being approached, but if there is interest beyond the UK for colleagues to attend, then of course you're very welcome. I should just say that it's being held on the Swansea campus, and the Swansea campus is a very beautiful part of the world, South Wales, where we have access to our own beach as well as a campus. And with that, I conclude. I'm putting that QR code there. I'm told to put that through for some of you to follow up and give an assessment. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that insightful presentation. As an economist graduate myself, I think that was really fascinating to learn more about the link between economics and critical national security infrastructure. It's a token of our thanks for coming all the way from the UK to present for us. My colleague Marwa is going to present you with a small token of our appreciation. So please, let's put our hands together one more time for Professor Siraj Sheikh. And next up in our list of 4 speakers we've got before the break, it's my pleasure to invite engineer Ali El-Anisi from the National Bank of Kuwait to present on industrial control systems. Please welcome him to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. I don't like to stand it, so I will be working here and there. My name is Ali El-Anisi, and I work in National Bank of Kuwait. I'm the security architecture. Basically, we make sure that your money within the bank is secured and you have the best investment with the bank. I have an over of 12 years of cybersecurity experience. I have over hundreds of certificates, alhamdulillah, I've gotten from SANS to Microsoft, I'm certified Microsoft trainer, certified ISO trainer. I have done a lot of SANS certificates. I'm sure that you know what is SANS. These are the things I request you to explore. Very nice certificates to have. Let me best tell you, this is what I'm currently doing is on a lab. We have published the paper back in 2018, but we are currently working on improving the paper and getting more results and more results to help Kuwait. So I will show you, for example, a dream that I wanted to have. This is where I started in 2018, where I dreamt to have a smart مباركية سوق. If you can see, مثلا I wanted to have traffic sensors, water sensors, noise sensors, to make sure now we have the best experience for everyone who's visiting Barkia. And that has been taken to another project. I was involved with Euronews to talk about the smart cities in Kuwait. I will take you on a journey. Where did we start it? And what we are doing now and what we wanted to land on. How it is started, actually, while I was working in IT, I have seen this news back in 2012, what happened with Saudi Aramco and how the Saudis reflected and built their national security on the attack, and how what they are currently doing and how they are presented their country and what they have reached. And the things happened just 3 months ago or a month ago with the Ministry of Finance. This compels us to have the right skills to keep continuing doing what we are doing in cybersecurity. And a brief, what I will talk about today is what is ICS, how to secure it, and what's in my dream that I wanted to Kuwait to have. So let's start, for example, what is a control system? I think you have seen something like this. This is a thermostat at your home, for example. So this is a control system that controls your AC within the room, controls, for example, this room. So this is a basic example of a control system. And take this example as a bigger example for example, Kuwait oil refineries, or for example, any gas stations, how we are controlling them. So imagine that you have a default password in these such devices, and what attack that could lead Kuwait to. So what we are currently doing is we wanted to have such a policy. The scope of our work currently is that we wanted to have a policy and we wanted to have a ground, the right laws and regulations for Kuwait. And then from that, we will start having the right protections to secure these devices. So take the example of the thermostat, and now we reflect it to the industrial controls. So for example, we have the operator species, how to control the operator species, how to control the network itself. And I want to take you to something called, this is the modules of the manufacturing. I want to reflect it, for example, in the Purdue module. The Purdue module is how to, architect the ICS control system. So in simple information security, it has levels from 0 to 4. 0 is where the sensors and devices are connected, and then how these devices are connected to the network and the IT network. There is a difference between the OT, which is operation technology, and information technology. What we are currently doing is we can't mix these networks together because of there is many issues with the ICS devices, patching. Sadly, most of these devices, the ICS network are not patched. So if you can see here, like we have industrial security zone, the delimited DMZs, and then we will go to enterprise. The enterprise security zone is where IT will land. Like we will have a jump PCs to connect to these PC networks. So we wanted to introduce this module. This module has been there since 19th, but this we wanted to build a Kuwaiti framework based on it. I have done some research on IoT. IoT is Internet of Things, and it's similar to ICS, where that is focused only in industry. But now you can take industry as everywhere. You can have it like in your home. You can have it, these controls. So we wanted to have these projections for the devices. So we want to make sure that everyone in Kuwait understand how to have the right secure infrastructure for these devices. And as I have introduced to you the Bordeaux, there is some also ISO certificates that help to standardize the, if you are interested to work with ICS, such ISO certificate will help you to to work with these on a secure matter. Okay, this is the difference between IoT and IT. Basically, the IT network is the normal network you are logging to, you know how to work with, and you're normally working with. The other network is OT, where the sensors and the PLCs and SCADA system are connected to, and how we could bring them both together. As I told you, we can, like we have, if you don't, something like jump PCs, firewalls, and how we wanted to, make sure that the OT system is secure by having such technologies. A quick question, how secure is ICS? Can we hack ICS now? Can we do a demo سريع? Can we? MashaAllah. I can just show you something سريع, but use it in an ethical way, please. Shodan. Shodan is a Google, something like Google search, but for ICS devices, water treatment. For example, by the way, this page is just a screenshot from their website. You can just go and you search for a SCADA system or ICS. So, for example, this is what I found in seconds. So imagine these are exposed to the internet. Please make sure you don't click on these. It will put you in a huge trouble. For example, if you can see here at the end, I think this is a water system, or this is an ICS system. I don't know, I didn't click on it. And what I have searched, I searched for SCADA. If you can see, there is a machine or operator has SCADA system. These are all exposed to the internet with seconds of clicks. So imagine your PCs, if you are planning to have, for example, a CCTV network and these things, and how you secure them. So make sure you are secured from Shodan at least. Shodan basically what it will do, it will go and using their bots, they will go and scrap everywhere the cloud for any open ports, AT, RDP, and these open ports. This is just a screenshot from first page. I didn't go evenly to the next one, second page. There's a lot of water system treatment, SCADA systems exposed to the internet. Sadly, it's not that secure. So you want to make sure that you are not using a default password. We wanted to introduce these types of controls to the industrial controls systems within Kuwait. And I want to quote from Dr. Siraj that the important thing is that when you secure these environments, you will improve your investment. The partnerships or the countries that want to invest within, for example, any project within Kuwait, they will have the trust of spending their money on a reliable infrastructure. And this is where I wanted to, we have highlighted the risk with. This is where I wanted to, what we are currently doing actually, we are thinking to introduce the cybersecurity strategy within Kuwait 2035, where we are thinking to have such of, a standard for having any device or having any technology to these control system. And we will start, as I told you, we'll start building the standards. We will see how the devices are connected and how we could introduce them to the network. It's just a dream. It is just what currently I'm doing within my lab. I hope that inshallah, we will take it from Kuwait University to any entity who is responsible for these things. Oh, by the way, I started my research back in 2018 from Kuwait University while I was doing the master certificate in information technology. The first research, it was from Kuwait University, and I want to thank Professor Paul and Dr. Zainab for their help. This is, for example, what we want to have. Like, we want to introduce risk management strategies. We want to introduce cybersecurity measures. We want to have it within the develop the 2035 plan for Kuwait. And by the way, I think Pillar 6 or Pillar 7 talks, and we need to have a reliable infrastructure within Kuwait. So if you want to have a reliable infrastructure within Kuwait, you need to have that infrastructure is secured. So this is what we, inshallah, we are thinking to have it within the 2035 vision. So moving forward, I'm working also with the cybersecurity desk in Dubai. They have built the IoT strategy. So inshallah, we wanted to start from there, building based on what the team in Dubai has built. They have, by the way, an IoT standard for UAE. It's a very nice standard, talks about how to secure the IoT devices, how to deal with them, and what types of controls that you need to work on, and how you, work with IoT devices. And that's it, I think. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you, but organizers, they told me in the fee survey, please, if you do it for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Engineer Al-Anizi for that insightful presentation. And once again, my colleague Marwa presenting a small token of appreciation. Next up, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Faisal Al-Balushi from the Open Worldwide Application Security Project's Kuwait chapter present and talk about enhancing supply chain risk management using OWASP, Cyclone DX, and Dependency Track. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Faisal Al-Balushi, OWASP Kuwait chapter leader. And I also work at the banking sector as a senior cybersecurity specialist. I would like at the beginning to thank the organizers for giving the OWASP Kuwait chapter the opportunity to participate in this conference. As you know, globally, supply chain risk became a major and complex concern. So today, I'm going to talk about the supply chain risk management and how it can be enhanced using OWASP Cyclone DX and Dependency Track. We are going to cover the following topics: what is OWASP, explaining the supply chain risk, the definition of SBOM, the software bill of material, Cyclone DX standard, dependency track platform, and we will wrap up with some recommendations. OWASP stands for Open Worldwide Application Security Projects. Most of us know OWASP through OWASP Top 10 projects. And this project is one of the multiple flagship projects under OWASP umbrella. And currently there are more than 250 projects. All of them are open source, and all of them are built by the community for the community. Let's start with the supply chain idea. Hundreds of companies collectively work to assemble a single car. It starts from the raw materials like steel, aluminum, plastic, rubber, manufacturing components, sub-assemblies like the door module, HVAC system, logistics and transportation, tools and equipment, software, and more. The same concept is applied to the software. Your software will be using some libraries, frameworks, packages, IDEs, open source softwares, operating systems. cloud services, third-party APIs, like payment processing, and so on. It can be thought as a software ingredient. To understand the risk, we need to show how the supply chain attack can cause significant impact. In 2020, March 2020, an APT group successfully injected their Trojan into a well-known platform. And that happened due to a supply chain attack. More than 18,000 clients applied the vulnerable updates. When we say 18,000 clients, they are governmental institutes, big companies, even the cybersecurity companies. It took 9 months to detect the breach. The same company got compromised again in July 2021 with, again, supply chain attack. In another example, in 2021, Colonial Pipeline, a major fuel pipeline operator in US, got compromised due to supply chain attack, and they deployed a dark side ransomware. The operation was down for approximately 6 days. The company paid $4.4 million US, but unfortunately they didn't rely on the key. They relied on their backup systems. The US government declared a state of emergency in the affected areas. As shown in the slides, these are the published and disclosed vulnerabilities for some packages. For example, PyPy has almost like 10,000 plus vulnerabilities. NPM, 12,000 disclosed vulnerabilities. Linux packages, 13,000 plus. NuGet, 500 plus. So it's better to monitor your packages. Just going back to our example, a car. You have a car, and this car has a lock module. This lock module is built by a third-party company. And this module can be vulnerable, for example, to authentication bypass. So monitoring third-party components and dependency is essential to avoid major incidents. That's why the SBOM, Software Bill of Material, came into the surface, just to keep records of third-party components and dependencies. ANTIA defines a SBOM as a formal machine-readable inventory, most likely XML or JSON. This inventory for software components and dependencies, information about those components, and hierarchical relationships between them. OWASP developed a standard called CycloneDX. It is a full stack bill of materials, not just software bill of material, but it also covers the software as a service bill of material, hardware bill of material, and hardware bill of material is widely used in the industrial control systems, IoTs, electronics, machine learning bill of material, manufacturing bill of material, operations bill of material, vulnerability disclosure reports for vulnerability intelligence, and VEX, vulnerability exploitability exchange. And the VEX, the vulnerability exploitability exchange, can be used to know which vulnerability is exploitable. A tool center can be found on CycloneDX website. It contains a set of open source and commercial tools. CycloneDX Generator is a good tool to start. It supports most of the languages and package formats. It supports also automation, CI/CD. Also, it submits the bombs to the dependency track automatically. So have a look on it. It's very useful to enhance the SDLC, software development lifecycle. So CycloneDX use cases, the following are some cases like inventory, known vulnerabilities, integrity verification, authenticity, assembly, dependency graph, and vulnerability exploitability through the VEX. Starting to adopt SBOMs would fall under a simple generation process as shown on the top. Generation, consumption, and analysis. You will be using one of the tools in the generation process, and usually it starts in the build phase. After getting a hands-on experience and being familiarized with XBOMs, your process or your generation process would be enhanced. So after generating the bomb, you can just verify the results. You will be adopting or using some tools and compare the results with the bombs you generated. And then if you need to correct, you can correct the results. You can enrich, adding some hash values, adding some references, annotations. After that, you can consume and analyze the results. For the consumption and analysis, OWASP also developed a dependency track. It is a platform for component analysis. It can be used to track vulnerabilities, outdated libraries, licenses, certificates, etc. Infrastructures can be monitored like servers, network components, firmwares, and so on. It helps in asset and patch management. It supports components like application, libraries, frameworks, operating systems, containers, firmware, files, hardware, services. Let's take an example. If you want to know if you are using OpenSSL with a specific version, just simply you can type OpenSSL and it will show you where you are using this. And if you are using an outdated version or not, do you need to, so it's very useful. This is the ecosystem that can be built. CycloneDX, the dependency track can consume or generate CycloneDX bombs, consume and produce also VEX, Vulnerability Exploitability Exchange. Vulnerability intelligence, there are a lot of databases like NVD, GitHub Advisory, OSV, and so on. Supported repositories to identify outdated components. It supports also notifications, API integration, vulnerability aggregation. So I would like to close with the following recommendations. Prioritizing supply chain risk management within your strategies for better supply chain resilience. Review software development lifecycle and other software security policies and try to incorporate the XBOMs or the software bill of materials. Make sure to cover all software classes, not only in-house applications, even the commercial softwares, open source softwares. Teaching students about supply chain is essential and how they can generate and consume bombs, the bill of materials. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Baluchi, for your presentation. Can I invite you to stay on the stage just for 2 seconds? And my colleague Mar will once again present you the token of appreciation. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, myself Sridhar Adepu. I'm a lecturer in Bristol Cybersecurity Group from University of Bristol. I think before the coffee break, mine is the last presentation. Siraj, Ali and Faisal, I think they presented about critical national infrastructure security and CNI security. So I'm going to continue for next 10 to 15 minutes. Please bear with me. So I will introduce the topic. I think already I will go a bit fast because already the previous speakers are introduced, and a bit of research work and ongoing research funded projects, and what are the infrastructure and programs we are offering as part of the group. In general, critical infrastructures are in different sectors: oil and gas, manufacturing, and other sectors. And so this has physical processes, computation, and communication. We can see in the feedback loop. If you look at the physical process, we have physical process, and the state of the physical process is collected by sensors. And sensors send this information to controllers. Controllers are nothing but PLCs or a embedded computer, and which takes a decision and send it to the actuators. And actuators takes the action again to the physical process. This is a loop. Of course, we are modernizing the infrastructure. That's where automation is increasing, and together with automation, vulnerabilities and attacks on the systems are also increasing. So these are our safety critical systems and great target for attacks, and there is a great need for securing these systems. And we all know all these attacks like Stuxnet, Ukraine, and Florida water plant hack. I'm not going to all of these in detail. So in general, critical national infrastructures are distributed in nature. For example, if you take a water distribution or oil and gas distribution networks, and you have different sensors and actuators, different parts of the city or geographical place, and these communicate to the PLCs, and PLCs communicate to SCADA, HMI, and management systems. As Ali presented Purdue model, this is exactly Purdue model with different levels. And sometimes we use firewalls so that management systems connecting to the OT networks or internal CNI networks, so we try to check whether any malicious attacker is entering into the network or not. And if the blob is an attack point, so it is possible to have attacks number of places, either within the SCADA system or network level or PLC level. And sometimes even close to the physical process, directly somebody compromising the sensor where you are collecting the data, right? I will show simple example how anomaly can birth and travel. For example, when we are accessing the OT network, and if the intrusion is not detected by the firewall, and SCADA is we use to operate the system, physical process, and we also use for uploading code or downloading the control code into the PLCs. So one can change the status, one can change how to control. For example, so we are controlling the room temperature, but if somebody changing the threshold of the room temperature in the aircon, then temperature going to change. Same, if we are running an autonomous train, and if somebody changing the speed of the train, it is going to increase the speed, right? It's the same. So, and one can send different malicious commands, and that goes to the controllers. When eventually controllers are compromised, it goes to the actuators, and actuators affect the physical process. As I shown in the feedback loop, it will go to the physical process, whatever you change, right? So this is a simple way how anomaly can birth and travel, and I will just show you a simple example how it can happen. So this is a context from my PhD work, and this is a small water treatment system where it has six-stage distributed control system with a number of sensors and actuators, which has a UF filter and RO filtration system. And from this plant, so I'm showing a simple example how one can overflow the water tank. Let's look at this. So this is the first stage in this water plant I showed you. So there is a motorized valve MV101. Whenever this valve opens, water comes into the tank, and there is a water level measured by LIT. LIT is a level sensor. And whenever water required in the other parts of the system, stage 2 or stage 3, pump P101 starts by PLC1. So PLC1 is a controller here, okay, which controls the motorized valve status as well as pump status, so that it can maintain the water level in the tank. I mean, this is a simple example to demonstrate. Okay, so A6, it's similar to F-16 or F-17 flight jets, attacker flight jets. So attacker comes into the level 0, as I showed the picture in the Purdue model, and it tries to open the motorized valve and send the status to the PLC as close. So now PLC, which is a brain of the control system, or which takes the decision, knows that the status is closed. So PLC does not know the valve is open. Then eventually what will happen? After some time, tank will overflow. So this can be applied to oil and gas systems or any critical national infrastructures in the world, right? I did the same experiment in the lab. So water was flooded everywhere. Actually, we were doing overnight, and in the morning, some defense people were visiting our lab, and they had to walk in the same water. So this was conducted by me. For example, multiple critical national infrastructures are interconnected. So if you take a water treatment, it produces the water, but it has to supply through a distribution system. So water treatment goes to water distribution, but these all power supply comes from the power generation and transmission and so on. All these systems are interconnected. Sometimes we generate electricity from the power and then vice versa. So actually these three systems are interconnected. This is a lab setup available in Singapore where I was doing my PhD. We collaborate closely and we work with them. And if there is an attack on any of the system, and if the production is reduced, it will also affect other parts of the system, and there are cascading effects, not only within the system, across the systems as well. Right? So in CNI, security is not only about keeping attackers out, so it is also about understanding risks and how to reduce the risks, cyber risks, and detecting attacks and anomalies, and how we can mitigate as well as responding to these adversaries. And previous speakers also mentioned about resilience of the system. So how we can keep the systems resilient if there is an attack, how we can continue to operate under different adversarial conditions. Yeah. So I will introduce few of my research works. So I call this as a DAD, distributed attack detection. So for example, this is the same picture from the plant I showed you, water treatment plant. You have a number of sensors and actuators. So what I call process invariants, I try to capture invariants. Invariants are nothing but rules which can capture the relationship between different sensors and actuators. So I try to generate invariants from plant design and control code in the plant. It's a water plant or any other plant, chemical plant. And then I use these invariants to act as a monitors so that I can generate alerts whenever there is an anomaly in the plant. So so in this water plant, so I already installed all my invariants. So I was participating on international live fire cyber defense exercise, so where number of teams participated across the globe. Different attack teams try to attack the water plant I showed, where it has RO and UF filtration, and defense teams try to protect it. And there are industry and academic teams participated. Yeah, this is a water plant I showed you before. And I'm showing results from previous years, but we have organized this event until 2023. And so every year, there are a number of industry teams, academic teams participated across the globe. And if you see the first green one, I think these are the results for my defense, water defense. And I was able to detect more number of attacks than 2 other industry teams. This was, I think it was a great job by my group. And the one good thing is, so NATO inspired by this event, and they adapted this event into CCDCOE. And now last 2 years, and they are organizing this event, and we are supporting them in order to organize and engage this event. So this is one of the impact. And another work I would like to explain about model-based analysis. So this work is together with MIT and Carnegie Mellon in US. So in this work, we are trying to generate attack scenarios. So you have seen an example how one can overflow the water tank in a water plant, right? But how to do this automatically? So without having a system background or without having a domain knowledge. So if we have a system model and we are able to model in an Ally analyzer, it's a formal model, and if we give a specification, okay, what you want to achieve, whether you want to burn the water pump or you want to overflow the tank or you want to inject the more chemical into the water. So you can give the attack specification so that this Ally analyzer able to generate the attack scenario, and we are also able to verify that on the water test bed I have shown. And we published this some time back. And so in this work, we are automatically able to generate different attacks, and we call this as automatically synthesizing attacks. And we can generate different unsafe states, okay? Yeah. Again, I'm not going to explain much, but these are different steps the model can generate in terms of discrete states. We can convert this into continuous states using another model. Okay. So far, I introduced two research works like how to generate automatic attacks and how we can detect anomalies and live fire exercise. So a couple of research projects I'm doing at the moment. I think Siraj is introduced RITICS. So actually we both are RITICS fellows for this year from NCSC in UK, RITICS fellows. So my work is on digital twins in cyber physical system security. So where I'm looking into how we can apply digital twins into different applications within the CPS security. At the same time, I'm also working on how to protect the digital twins. So we are trying to collect the data or different form, and we are modeling it. So how we can protect digital twins themselves. Yeah, so these are two contexts I'm looking in different sectors within the CNI. And this is funded by RITICS. And another funded project is RISIX. Actually, this is also aligned with RITICS. I think, as Siraj explained, RITICS is NCSC Research Institute within the Industrial Control Systems or Cyber Physical System Security. So in this project, I'm collaborating with Imperial College London, where we are looking at risk and impact assessment in cascading systems and cyber attacks and their impact on safety. So here we look towards integration of safety and security and how we can improve the resilience of the system under cascading attacks while considering the risk of cyber risks. Another hub, actually this is a large hub with 6 to 7 universities engaged, more than 50 industry and academic partners all around the globe. Bristol is leading it. We call Supergen Energy Networks Hub. It is for 5 years, so where we bring different vibrant communities in the energy networks, oil and gas, windmills, and power generation in power grids, and all the communities together. So I am the cybersecurity lead for the project. This is one of the UK flagship projects in energy networks. And this is funded by EPSRC. We look in, my focus is cyber risk and cyber resilience in this project for 5 years. Okay, so the last few slides before the break. So we have, within the Bristol, we have good infrastructure facilities within our group. So we have test beds. This water test bed here is from our group, one of our research associate accessing it. We have number of PLCs and training exercises. For training exercises, we have number of infrastructure to play around, conveyor belts, PLCs, and you can see the right side SOC. So this is from our lab. So we have a big SOC. I can also show another, like we also have the manufacturing Lego and real-time simulators to play around energy networks and other critical national infrastructure. Right. And okay, so what we offer, so we offer MSc program in infrastructure security with a focus on critical national infrastructure security. We also offer PhD programs in the same area. And of course, we also offer training and certification programs in the same area. And if anybody interested, they can contact me. Yeah, this is my last slide. Thank you very much. If anybody is interested in general critical national infrastructure security, I'm happy to have a chat with them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adibu, for the presentation. Once again, my colleague Mara is going to hand over a token of appreciation. Hugely appreciate you coming all the way from the UK. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our next break. But before we depart, hands together once more. We've had 4 brilliant speakers from a mix of industry and academia, so a big round of applause one more time.